Hi, and welcome to the Caterpillar Cross Stitch YouTube channel. Everybody knows that collecting craft supplies and doing crafts are two totally separate hobbies. Personally, I enjoy both. So this week, I'm going to teach you everything that you need to know to embark into the wonderful world of collecting way more cross-stitch fabric than you could ever possibly use. I have a lot I want to talk about, so let's get going. This video is in response to a lot of questions about different types of fabric in the comments of my previous videos. So have something that you want me to talk about in a future video, put it in the comments and I'll see what I can do to answer your question. Likewise, make sure that you like this video and give the channel a subscribe so that you don't miss any of my future videos, because we upload new ones every single week. Now when it comes to cross-stitching fabric, the 800-pound gorilla in the market is Aida. This can also be pronounced Aida, like the opera. Both are correct. In fact, it is named after the opera, so you can call it either one of those. Now, Aida has some interesting characteristics. Let me show you that. Now, if we look closely at this Aida, we can see that it's got holes that are evenly spaced throughout the fabric. And then between those holes, there are actually 4 individual threads. We've got one that goes down or up, and then 2 that go the opposite, and then 1 that goes down. So we've got kind of a sub-weave going on within the weave, and then these holes being left at regular intervals. This is great for cross-stitching because those holes are really easy to count and really easy to position, and it makes it easy to transfer in your mind or on the fabric your pattern from the gridded pattern that you have to the grid that's built into the fabric. It makes that very simple. Now, there are a lot of advantages to using Aida for cross-stitching. It's extremely easy to count, it's really easy to use, it's really durable, it's readily available, you can buy it almost anywhere. It's almost always pure cotton, so it's really easy to hand dye it if you want to make some custom colors. I have here a couple of pieces of Aida that I have custom dyed myself with dye that I literally bought at the grocery store in the aisle with the sewing needles and the replacement buttons and stuff. So it's really nice to use Aida for that, but there are some disadvantages to it compared to other types of fabric. Because of the plainly visible weave in it, it does destroy the illusion that you are stitching freely a little bit. It makes it look a little bit pixely. It can be a little bit stiff and a little bit harder to work with and get in and out of a hoop, for instance. And the stiffness of the fabric can kind of limit the ways that you can finish and display it when you're done. There aren't a lot of counts available, and usually the highest count of Aida you'll see is about 20. So if you want to do really stitch dense projects, then you can't really go much higher. Most of the time you'll only see 18. So there aren't as many selections and options of stitch densities for Aida. And because of the fact that you've got these 4 threads inside of each weave of the stitch, it makes it a little bit harder to do fractional stitches like 1/4 and 3/4 stitches, because your needle has to pierce down through that section, and it can be a little bit difficult to get it right in the middle of it. So fractional stitches are a bit harder to do on Aida than they are on higher count fabrics. But that being said, it is the king of cross-stitching fabric for a very good reason. So especially if you're new to it, that's where you usually want to start. I want to take just a second here to remind you to join the Caterpillar Cross Stitch VIP Stitch Club. When you join, you get 10% off your first order, you get a digital download of our top 10 cross-stitching tips, and you get an ebook with 8 free PDF cross-stitch patterns in it. So make sure you hit the link down there in the description. Now, the next term that we're going to talk about in cross-stitch fabric is even weave. Now, even weave can be a little bit confusing and deceptive because it is a very broad term, and it is actually a category that does include Aida. Any fabric that has the same number of threads, both horizontally and vertically, the weft versus the warp, is an even weave fabric. So Aida is even because it has the same number of threads horizontally and vertically, but it's a specialty kind of even weave, so we kind of separate it out. Most of the time when stitchers say even weave, what they mean is a higher count fabric beyond what Aida can do. And usually it won't have multiple strands within the weave, it'll just be individual strands. So let me show you a little bit what I'm talking about. This is a piece of 28 count even weave. So if we compare that to the stitch density of our Aida, you can see that we're making about twice as many stitches per inch on this even weave as we would be on Aida. Now, a lot of time when we stitch on even weave, we're actually going to stitch over 2 strands. So instead of coming up right here and going down right here and making one little tiny stitch, what we would do with even weave most of the time is come up here and go down over here, going over 2 strands of the fabric. So to kind of show you on a bigger fabric so it's easier to see, instead of going over 1 strand of the fabric, if we were stitching over 2 on Ada, we would go over 2 strands of the fabric. So our X that we would form would cover this area. So you make the stitch twice as big. So on 28 count, because you're stitching over 2 strands of the fabric, you're actually going to be stitching 14 stitches per inch, the same as 14 count Ada. But the stitches will be covering 2 strands of the fabric instead of 1. And one nice thing about that is that because the weave of the fabric doesn't exactly match the size of the stitches, it creates a kind of more finished and refined look because the stitches don't line up perfectly with the grid of the fabric. It makes it look a little bit more impressive, to be totally honest. Within the subset of even weave, you'll hear a bunch of names thrown around like Jobalon or Lugana or Monaco. These are specific fabrics that are made by specific manufacturers, and so they have a consistent nature to them and they'll behave in a particular way. Monaco is all cotton, and so it's really easy to use and really easy to dye. Jobalon is a synthetic blend, and so it is really smooth and buttery and really nice to stitch on, but it's harder to dye it yourself. So those are things that you want to look into with any of those particular subsets of even weave. Now, I try to answer questions and comments in the comments of my videos, but I don't always have time to do that, and sometimes if it's an old one, I don't see it. So if you have a question that you really need answered, a great place to do that is in the Caterpillar Cross Stitch community. There's an amazing community of stitchers that's grown up around the brand. Go join the Caterpillar Cross Stitch Facebook group and go follow the CCS Instagram, the Caterpillar Cross Stitch Instagram. Both are really amazing places full of amazing stitchers and just a tremendous wealth of knowledge and expertise. So I highly recommend checking that out. The next slightly confusing term that you'll hear used to refer to cross-stitching fabric is linen. People will call their fabric linen, which is a little bit confusing because linen is a fiber. Linen is a particular material from which that fabric is made. So linen can really be any kind of fabric, everything from tablecloths to suits to cross-stitching fabric. But the linen fiber has some particular characteristics that make it a little bit different from the other fabrics that we've talked about. So this is a piece of 28 count linen even weave from my collection. And if you look in here, you'll see one of the most notorious characteristics of linen fabric, which are these little thick spots here. Linen fibers are not as easy to spin very consistently as, say, cotton is into strands and into yarns. So you wind up with these, what we call slubs. They are somewhat uneven and they give a little bit of a rustic and handmade charm to the project. Now, if your project requires extreme precision, this can be a problem. And if you're working over one on linen, make sure you go back and check my video on tent stitches versus half stitches. You'll want to learn how to use a tent stitch because it makes a big difference. But the linen, because of that, looks really, really impressive to use. It's really enjoyable to work with. There are some cons to it that you'll want to take into account. Again, if you are a control freak, those slubs might make you a little bit crazy, so you want to keep that in mind. But linen also has another characteristic which can make it a little bit more difficult to work with, and that is that the fibers are actually quite flexible. So if you look here, you can really easy twist and skew the linen fibers. So that makes it a little bit more difficult to keep straight, and it makes it quite difficult to frame and display. So you want to keep that in mind when deciding whether or not to use linen. It also, because it doesn't really bind to itself as much as cotton does, it really has a tendency for the edges of your working piece to fray. So if you're working with linen, you will definitely need to finish the edges in some way. And because it comes unraveled so easily, I don't think masking tape is good enough there. I would use an overlock stitch on your sewing machine or a blanket stitch to finish the edge of a piece of linen that you're working with. I have made videos about how to do both of those things, so make sure you go and check those out before you undertake working with linen. Now I think that covers pretty much all of the kinds of fabrics and terms that you'll hear out there. Did I miss something? Is there something that you've seen that I didn't cover? Let me know in the comments down below. I do want to thank you so much for watching. Please remember to subscribe to the channel and like the video. For Caterpillar Cross Stitch, my name is Ford, and I will see you next time.
Hi, have you heard about Love It Stitch It yet? You can design and shop the cross stitch patterns you've always wanted. Love It Stitch It is an easy to use design tool and exclusive cross stitch marketplace, giving you the freedom to create, sell and shop all in one place. You can design anything that you like, add text, upload and convert pictures and artwork. You can design the cross stitch patterns of your dream. You can download them for personal use, or you can upload them onto the marketplace, designed by cross stitchers for cross stitchers, jam-packed with some gorgeous cross stitch patterns from designers all over the world. If you're not interested in designing or selling, that's totally fine too. Just visit the marketplace and you can shop from hundreds of beautiful cross stitch patterns so you can pick your next project. Are you already a cross stitch designer, but maybe you're fed up of other marketplaces, maybe not getting the sales that you deserve, maybe not getting your patterns seen as much as you'd like? Then let us help. You can easily register for free and get uploading your PDF patterns with absolutely no fees whatsoever. Let us then market your gorgeous designs that you've put all of your work into to over 185,000 dedicated cross stitchers from all over the world. We will absolutely do our best to get your patterns seen and into the right hands of people that we know will absolutely love stitching them. As a designer, you can easily list your PDF patterns for sale, no matter which software you use to design them. Our job is to make cross-stitch design accessible to all. There's nothing to upgrade, there's nothing to download. It's really easy to use and beginner friendly. We also wanted to create the marketplace to bring sellers and buyers together so that it's really easy and such an enjoyable experience to shop all of the high quality verified designs on the platform, but also to give those amazing designers a place to really showcase their creativity. So visit loveitstitchit.com today and register for free. Stitch what you love and free your creativity.